We're continuing this series this week on building our faith, and this morning we're going to be talking about spiritual gifts and finding our position on the team. Most of us has been on a team before. When we talk about teams, we more than often talk about sports, but you can. How many of you work with teams when you're at your job? You work on different teams, and right? So you know what that's like. Maybe you're a musician and you're in a band or something like that, and you work with other people in the band to make incredible music. That's working together on a team. But sports, are just synonymous with teams. Most of us, like I said, have been on a team before. When I was 7 years old, my parents put me on a baseball team, and I'll say this. I grew into my athleticism, and that's saying a lot because even in growing into my athleticism, I didn't have very much. But at 7 years old, I certainly had no athleticism. Anybody else, like when you're a kid, you're like not an athlete at all? Okay, well, it's a few of us. So my parents put me on a baseball team, and I had no interest in playing. I did not want to play. As a matter of fact, I did not know a thing about baseball. I'd never swung a bat in my life, never caught a ball, never put my hand in a glove, nothing like that. The first time I remember my mom throwing a ball to me to practice, she threw the ball to me, and I didn't know what to do, and it hit me in the eye, and I got a black eye. That's the first time. That was my introduction to baseball. My mom did that to me. How embarrassing is that? And I'm going to say this politely, I really stunk at baseball. Like, absolutely was horrible. I stunk at baseball, but I really liked being on the team. There's a couple of reasons. I loved wearing a uniform, which was weird. I liked putting on a uniform. I loved cheering for my friends. I liked feeling that I had a position, which was in the outfield where no one hit the ball because my coach didn't want me to, mess up the game. So he sent me in the outfield, and I, as a kid, and my ADHD as a kid, I just stare off into the distance. Anyway, but I liked thinking as a kid that I had something to contribute, even if it was just warming the bench. And last week, my family and I were on vacation. One of the things that we got to do was we got to go to a Reds game. That's why I'm wearing this today. We're talking about finding your position on a team. We went to a Reds game, and there's just something about being at a ballpark. Does anybody like going to baseball games? Yeah, love going to baseball games. There's just something about baking in the sun and paying $50 for a hot dog and a pop and singing Take Me Out to the Ball Game and hearing the crowd, there's just something about it. I just love the atmosphere. And as I was watching the game, I couldn't help but to think while I was there, man, I really wish I was on the team. That's a crazy thought, but, and boy, it's hilarious to even think about that. But I thought, man, I would really love to be on that team. Can you imagine being in the uniform and making friends with all the players and hitting a home run or making a defensive play and all these people cheering for you and shouting your name? And that is purely fantasy. That will never happen. It's not, it will just never happen, not even close. I heard that there's this fantasy baseball thing that people can pay to go to major league clubs and be with the team at spring training. I'm like, what? Why would you pay money to humiliate yourself? I'm not doing that. But though it's purely fantasy, here's the transition. If you're a Christian, playing on a team isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. You see, being a follower of Jesus is an invitation to play on his team. And what that means is you and I can represent Jesus through the use of our gifts for the benefit of the church. And here's the thing, in the church, everybody plays. You're not going to be a bench warmer like me when I was a kid. You're not going to be in the outfield doing nothing because you contribute nothing. No, in the church, everybody plays. If you're a Christian, you're on the team and you have a part to play. There's no spectators. The church needs your talents. It needs your abilities. And it needs your gifts. Charles Stanley, he once said this, as God's children, we are not to be observers. We are to participate actively in the Lord's work. Spectators sit and watch, but we are called to use our spiritual gifts and to serve continually, not just one time or every so often, but continually. Can I say something that might be really difficult to hear? It was for me. I guess I'm going to say it anyway. So, the church does not need more spectators. It needs participators. The church does not need more spectators. It needs participators. And my hope and my prayer is that through this message, if you're not yet serving, if you're not yet connected, if you've not yet found your place on the team, and when I say the team, I want to say the team is representative. We can say Team Jesus, or we can say the church overall. If you've not found your place on the team, we want to help you find your place, and we want to get you on the field to actually participate and use your gifts and use your talents and use your abilities so that we can win. And what's winning? The advancement of the kingdom of God. The advancement of the kingdom of God. And so in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, Paul urges the church to actively use their gifts and participate in what God's doing. So let's read this. We'll just start in verse 1. 1 Corinthians 12, verse 1, it says this. Now, brothers and sisters, I want you to understand about spiritual gifts. And so Paul begins chapter 12, and he's addressing confusion and misunderstanding surrounding spiritual gifts. When we talk about spiritual gifts, does anybody else, there's some mysticism around them, right? There's some maybe misunderstanding. Anybody else feel that way? Maybe just me. But there's some confusion, and Paul addresses that here. Whenever I've talked about spiritual gifts, there's always questions. And so what spiritual gifts are and what they are not are important. I thought we'd start with what spiritual gifts are not. Okay? The first thing is spiritual gifts are not natural talents. Again, if you have a talent to crack a ball, 600 yards, that's great. If you have, you are born with an amazing voice, that's a talent, that's incredible. And you can use that to make an impact on God's kingdom. God can use your voice. But spiritual gifts are not our natural born talents. Also, spiritual gifts are not given to an elite few. Did you know that spiritual gifts are available to all of us? Every one of us. If you are a Christian, not if you call yourself a Christian, but if you are a Christian, all of us, have spiritual gifts. Now, I know there are some of us in this room that are thinking, I don't have a gift. No, you do have a gift. Maybe you're not sure what that is. Maybe you're in the process of trying to understand what that is, but you certainly have a gift. The third thing is it's not a sign of maturity. We oftentimes think, well, only pastors have spiritual gifts, and only the elders and the deacons have spiritual gifts. No. If you're a new believer, if you've received Christ and the Holy Spirit lives inside of you, that you have a gift that God has given you, or gifts that God has given you. And you know that we can be immature in our gifts. One of the misunderstandings is that these gifts have to be evident immediately. Maybe it takes time to process what our gift is. Maybe it takes some discernment and some understanding and prayer and seeking God to understand and know what your gifts are. So it's not necessarily a sign of maturity. The next thing is spiritual gifts are not the fruit of the Spirit. They're totally different. They're separate. The fruit of the Spirit is the fruit. It's what the Holy Spirit produces in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, so on, so on, so on. Right? That's what, as we connect with God, as we grow and mature, that's what the Holy Spirit produces. But gifts are given to us through the Holy Spirit by God for the benefit of the church. The next thing is the Holy Spirit is not the force. It's not like, exactly. It's not that. How many of you have seen Star Wars before? If you don't raise your hand, shame on you. But the Holy Spirit is not the Force. It's not like some Jedi mind trick, right? That like all of a sudden, I wave my hand and somebody's, prophesying. That's not how it works. The last thing that spiritual gifts are not, and maybe some of you have seen this and it's caused some skepticism or turnoff from this. The spiritual gifts are not weird. They're not weird. One of the things I just wish that we would stop being is weird. Like, I know some of us struggle with this a little more than others, but can we just allow God to work in our lives and just be real, normal human beings, right? Like, we don't have to put on a show. We don't have to, pretend that we're better than other people because I can speak in tongues, right? Like, it's just silliness, right? The spiritual gifts are not weird. They're not meant to be weird. So what are spiritual gifts? Well, as I said, when you receive the Holy Spirit, or you receive faith in Jesus, and the Holy Spirit is within you, and as the Holy Spirit dwells within you, he displays or expresses himself by giving you gifts or a gift that are very unique to you personally. And this is of sorts, proof that God is living inside of you. I will say very definitively that I don't believe, and we don't believe as a church, that the spiritual gifts are a sign of that you must have all the spiritual gifts, and we're going to get to that in a moment. But if you don't have the gift of tongues, or if you don't have the gift of prophecy, or such and such, that you're not a believer, that you're not a Christian, that the Holy Spirit doesn't dwell in you. So why does the Holy Spirit give us gifts? This is important to understand. So we know what the gifts are not. We know that the gifts are given to us as we surrender our lives to Jesus, and the Holy Spirit lives inside of us. He gives us these gifts to do what with? Why do we have them? What's the point of them? Well, let's continue on in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 to understand this. In verse 4, it says, there are different kinds of gifts, but the same Spirit distributes them. There are different kinds of service, but the same Lord. There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and everyone, it is the same God at work. Now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. And so Paul is making it very clear here. Remember what I said earlier. Everyone is given a gift. Everyone that is a Christian is given a gift. And we're given different gifts. But they all come from the same source, the Holy Spirit. And these gifts were given so that Christians could what? It says for the common good. So Christians could help each other. So the church could help one another. Spiritual gifts are the reason why we have them, the purpose of them, the why behind them. Spiritual gifts are for the benefit of the church. Spiritual gifts benefit you and me in our everyday lives. Rick Warren, he said this, your spiritual gifts were not given for your own benefit, but for the benefit of others, just as other people were given gifts for your benefit. You see, every one of us is on our own unique faith journey. All of us are on different areas of our faith. And because each of us are different, just like the disciples, God gives us each gifts that are part of his perfect plan for our lives. And I said this morning with our team. This is amazing to me. This is amazing. Because what this means is if you're a Christian, God has included you in his master plan to make himself known to the world. God included you. Like God cared to include you in his plan to make himself known to all people. He didn't have to do that, did he? Like in a moment, God could have snapped his fingers and everyone know, but he included us in being a part of what God is doing. And this means that you have a role. If you're a Christian, you have a part to play. You have something to contribute. Why does this matter so much to me? And I want you to think about this and make this personal. Maybe this is something that you can think about right now. But my life was changed because someone decided to use their gifts and ability to advance God's kingdom. My life was changed forever because of one person's yes to God. How many of your lives have been impacted by other people, maybe for eternity? Many of us. And I think back to that, like the gifts that God has given us, what if in that moment that person said, no, I'm not going to exercise my gift, I'm not going to, or maybe I'm fearful or whatever, right? How different my life could be. The gifts of the Spirit benefit the church. And so let's really quickly, we're not going to spend a bunch of time on these because we could talk about these forever, but what are some of the gifts of the Spirit? And there are different gifts listed in Ephesians and Romans, but we're going to focus, because we're in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, we're going to focus on 1 Corinthians. So let's pick up in verse 8. It says, to one there is given through the Holy Spirit a message of wisdom, to another a message of knowledge, by means of the same Spirit, to another faith, by the same Spirit, to another gifts of healing, by that one Spirit, to another miraculous powers, to another prophecy, to another distinguishing between spirits, to another speaking in different kinds of tongues, and to still another interpretation of tongues. All of these are the work of one and the same Spirit, and he distributes them to each one just as he determines. And so the first spiritual gift that we see is in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 is wisdom. Wisdom is, when you think about wisdom, you think about the Old Testament. It's very powerful and prevalent in the Old Testament. It tells you what God would have you do. To have wisdom, the gift of wisdom is to possess this supernatural wisdom that is able to oftentimes diffuse conflict and provide clarity where no one else could provide clarity. It can also involve teaching wisdom that you yourself did not know prior to God giving you that wisdom and understanding. An example of this might be you have the discernment to go to, this happened to me one time. I had this discernment to stop at a specific gas station, and at that gas station, God put me in contact with this person that needed help. How many of you have been in a situation where supernaturally the Lord gave you wisdom and guided you and instructed you to do something, and you found out, hey, as I obeyed, like there was benefit. Somebody's life was impacted because of that. The next one is the spiritual gift of knowledge. And this is having the ability to possess knowledge that would not be known unless it was given by God. Specifically, it is information about another person or situation given directly by God that wouldn't have been known otherwise. I want to just share this quickly. When we were in Chattanooga, my wife and I, we were children's pastors in Chattanooga, and we were considering moving to Michigan. This was a while ago. And I had a friend ask me to coffee, and before we even said anything, he said, and I'm like, Scout's honor, this pinky swear, whatever you want me to say, this sounds unbelievable. But the first thing that he said when we sat down for coffee is like, I've been praying for you, and the Lord is opening up a door for you in Michigan, and you're supposed to do it. I hadn't told him about that. That's incredible. That is a gift of knowledge. It has nothing to do with human knowledge. It's a communication by the Spirit of God of that knowledge. The next thing is the gift of faith. And this is different than our saving faith in Jesus Christ, but supernatural faith that is willing to take incredible steps of faith. It characterizes itself in performing unusual deeds of trust, and this person has a capacity to see something that needs to be done and believe that God will do it through them, even when it looks impossible. Even when it looks impossible. How many of you know someone that has incredible faith like that? The next one is the gift of healing. The gift of healing is the ability to heal physical sickness. And this is not provided through medical profession. It's not, mind over matter. It's not eating the right diet or using essential oils or whatever else, right? It's the power of the Holy Spirit working in and through someone to heal disease. I want to say this because I didn't plan to say this, but listen, we believe that the gifts of the Spirit are still alive and they're for the church today. They did not end when the apostles left. They did not end when Jesus left. They are for the church today. The next one is miracles, and it is exactly how it sounds. It's the ability to, this is kind of the wrong word, I don't know another word, but perform supernatural miracles. It alters or suspends or controls the law of nature. Think about a miracle in the Bible. Think about Moses and his staff and parting the Red Sea, right? That defies laws, right? That's supernatural. The next one is prophecy. Prophecy is to speak forth the mind and the heart of God, for you to communicate the mind and the heart of God. And to be able to communicate that, you have to know the Lord pretty intimately. And these words often can encourage, they can comfort, they can challenge, or strengthen God's people. Possessing this gift can also lead to one's ability to predict future events through visions and dreams. The next one is discernment of spirits. To have this gift is to have the ability to sense demonic presence or discern if a teaching or something is God. What this is not is like, I've had people say, my ex is crazy. It's not like discerning that your ex is crazy. Like, he's the devil. Like, I seriously have had people say stuff like that. I'm like, okay. That's not what it is. But it's to have the ability to sense, like, we understand that there's a war going on, right? A spiritual war that goes beyond the flesh, right? The enemy is after our souls. It's to have the discernment to understand that the enemy is doing something behind the scenes and to give us some inside information or discernment about what he's doing. The next one is a gift of tongues. A person is enabled by the Spirit to speak in languages that he or she has never heard. And the goal here in speaking in tongues, and it can be done privately, and I believe that when we talk about the gifts, and remember I said the gifts are for the benefit or the edification of church, the gift of tongues is, I believe, and I hope I'm saying this correctly, the only gift that really is used in private, right? The other gifts, or that can be used in private, the other gifts are, again, for the benefit of the church, right? So if it enables a person, have you ever heard someone maybe pray and maybe this is something that's like totally new to you, but they pray in this different language. It's a special prayer language that they have with God. It's this language that they connect with God. And on the other hand, tongues can be used in a corporate setting like church, where someone can communicate what God is saying through a different language. Whenever someone, and I want to be clear to say this, whenever someone speaks in tongues in a corporate setting, there always must be an interpretation of tongues. There always must be an interpretation. Here's what we can know, that if someone speaks in tongues and there's no interpretation, we can, through our own reasoning, determine that if there's a speaking in tongues and no interpretation, that probably wasn't from God. So speaking and interpretation of tongues is complementary to the gift of speaking in tongues. They go hand in hand. Where there's tongue out loud, the expectation is that there's an interpretation, like I said. So I went through this very quickly. And for some of you, you're looking at me like deer in the headlights, like, oh my gosh. Like prophecy, speaking in tongues, the gift of healing, miracles. Like that's extreme. That's almost like when we were talking about weird, borderline weird stuff. Like a little bit maybe crazy you're thinking. And I understand that. I want to talk to you about that in a second. But now that we know what the spiritual gifts are, how do we determine as individuals what our own spiritual gifts are? There's a few things, and I'm going to just read them quickly. The first thing is to pursue a deeper relationship with God. The more connected we are to God, the more we know him, the more we know his heart, the more we understand what he wants and what he desires. He gives us wisdom and understanding and discernment to know what our spiritual gifts might be. Listen, we can talk to our friends all day long, but God is our best source to understand if we need understanding, right? So if you're in this room this morning and maybe you don't have an understanding of what spiritual gifts are fully, or you don't know your spiritual gift, the first thing is to pursue a deeper relationship with God. You can do this through spending time, and I know this is cliche, but it's cliche for a reason, spending time in prayer, spending time reading your word, because those things help us to know God. The second thing is to pursue a relationship with other believers. This helps us to refine our gifts because they're intended to be used as a blessing to other people. They're intended to be used as a benefit to others. We are supposed to use our gifts in relationship with one another. Last night we talked about, we were in a group and we were talking about taking care of ourselves. And one of the things that was communicated is, man, some of us are not good at having good relationships with other people, for whatever reason that might be. But can I just say, we need each other. As a church, you and I need each other to support each other, to uplift each other, to encourage each other, to love one another, to push each other. The next thing is consider taking a spiritual gift test if you don't know what your spiritual gift is. I have something really cool to show you. Go ahead and go on to the next one. If you've never taken a spiritual gift test, here's your chance. Get your phone out. All you have to do is text gifts to this phone number, and boom, spiritual gift test will come to your phone. Can you keep that up just for a little bit so that people can have it? So we want to provide you with resources to help you understand what your spiritual gift is. Now, as we're ending, here's where the message comes full circle. We talked about spiritual gifts and what they are and what they're not. We talked about why the Holy Spirit gives it to us. We talked about spiritual gifts that are found in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. We talked about how to help determine what our spiritual gifts are. But here's what I want to say to you in conclusion. You were created by God with very unique skills and talents and abilities. You were designed by God with his kingdom in mind, knowing that you would have a position, you personally would have a role, and you would have a purpose. And that is specific to you and your calling, and it's very particular to you. Not only are you skilled, though, you have the difference maker, the Holy Spirit that lives inside of you, that gives you power to do what God's called you to do if you're a Christian. And if that isn't enough, you've been given gifts that only complement your personality and your strengths and all those other things that benefit each other. They impact others. That's the important key here. And I know there might be different reasons. Some of us might claim ignorance, like we don't know what they are, or skepticism, or you've had a bad experience and someone was really weird with these and you're like, no, thank you. I want nothing to do with this, right? Or maybe, and this is incredibly common, you've experienced church hurt and you've been hurt and it's caused you to pull back. Gosh, I can't even tell you how often we see people that come through these doors that talk about church hurt. It's not right. It's not how it's supposed to be, and we're sorry. Maybe you're afraid to put yourself out there to use these gifts. Can I encourage you with something? If the gifts are given by the Holy Spirit, don't you think the Holy Spirit is going to give us everything we need to use the gifts to accomplish the work that God's called us to? It's not on us. Take a deep breath. It's not on us. The Holy Spirit is working in us. When we receive this gift, we still have to make the choice to open it, right? When you get a gift, you can choose not to open it, though that's silly, right? You still have to make the choice to open it. And when we sit on our gifts and we don't use our gifts, know that it's not just you missing out. Others miss out on what God could potentially do through the impact of your life. Other people might be missing out. And so, the church needs you. People need you, and we need you.